I went right to the graveyard and told my son, Aaron, you can now sleep. Justice has been served.
On June 26, 2011, Debbie Warnham's 25-year-old son Aaron was fatally shot 3 times. His mother waited 32 months to see the suspect's case go to trial, which is longer than the average 26. When the time finally arrived, going to court this February was one of the worst moments of her life.
Outside of burying my child, that was the second worst, because being in court for 2.5 weeks, the gruesome, I must have heard 3 or 4 times a day of how my son was murdered.
The jury found Anthony Robertson guilty of first-degree murder. The 22-year-old from Dorchester will serve life in prison. Hearing the sentencing was hard to listen to.
You know, my baby's in the ground, but here's a mother. She lost her son too, because he's in jail for the rest of his life.
Debbie, coping with her son's death, has been a trial of its own.
You put on that face because you're out in the public. You know, you can't. I do all my mourning in my home. There's many a night I go to bed crying, many a night, just thinking about what my son would have done today if he was alive.
Aaron was one of 63 victims killed in Boston in 2011. So far, there have been 17 convictions from that year. Debbie found comfort through Mothers for Justice and Equality, made up of members who also lost a loved one to violence. Sarah Flint was one of the founding members of the group in 2010.
At first, they thought it was just a group of angry mothers that, you know, are out to get revenge. No, we want solutions. You know, we want to take our grief to action.
Drawing from her experiences when her 15-year-old son Jimmy was fatally stabbed in 1981, Sarah collected years' worth of resources for mothers today who don't know what to do.
This has been my dream for a long time, to, you know, hold people accountable, get justice for our children, and make our cities, our streets safer.
You don't have to put on a face for them, because they all understand, they all know. They're all going through the same thing.
Debbie's one of the few mothers that found justice for her son while others still wait.
I mean, I'm very, very thankful, very grateful that they found my son's murderer. But there's a lot of people out there that they don't get that justice. So it's kind of bittersweet when I talk to people, you know, because I'm being jubilant, but then, I got to think about them, because they haven't. Their murderers haven't been found. So, you know, you can't be happy. At least around them, I can't be happy.
Happiness is not even a part of my vocabulary.
Exactly. Neither is mine.
Aretha Mage and Jeannie Curry still wait for their son's killers to be found. The questions who and why have plagued them for years.
But even if they do catch him, it's not going to be enough for me unless I know why. I like to speak to him. But then again, the rage that I have sometimes, because I have good days, but then I have some evil thoughts.
On New Year's Eve of 2008, Aretha's 16-year-old son Devontae Mage Franklin was fatally stabbed while riding the number 28 bus. What haunts Aretha to this day is that he was wearing a Florida Marlins baseball hat. The letter F stood for his last name, but the family didn't know the letter was symbolic to a nearby gang.
The really bad thing about it is, I brought him the hat for Christmas. And if I knew the hat would be that type of danger, I would never brought the hat.
That year, most people murdered around Devontae's age were gang-related. For Jeannie, it's been over 13 years since her 23-year-old son Kramer was stabbed in Salem. He went into cardiac arrest 2 weeks later and died. Her son's case is still open.
I mean, it makes you feel like if people are walking by you, you know, are they the ones that did it?
When these two mothers lost their children, they nearly lost themselves.
You know, I was out of work for a year, and that whole year I just drowned all my sorrow in alcohol.
Yes.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
And, wow. Just by the grace of God, my family, the Peace Institute, my church, you know, my friends, they helped pull me out of that. They helped pull me out of that, you know, because I was destroying my life.
They eventually put themselves back together, but not completely.
When my son died, a big part of me died too.
Absolutely. And that's how it is for me still. I'm still dead. Like you said, when he died, a part of me died. And it stays that way.
They put their own grief aside to help newcomers cope with their losses. Beverly Kelly joined the group last year. Her 18-year-old nephew Thaddeus Clark was fatally shot last March. Clark's mother Anita, who's Kelly's sister, was stabbed to death by her ex-husband in a separate incident in Stoughton 3 months later.
Ever since that happened, I'm a survivor myself. It woke up something in me. And I just feel like I have to save the rest of the women on these streets.
Last year, most murders took place on the streets of Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan. For years, black males in their early 20s have been the most common victims in Boston and nationwide. Teens have also been a large casualty. In 2007, Pastor Kim Odom's 13-year-old son Stephen was outside their home in Dorchester.
Unfortunately, we hear gunshots in our community. And however, I don't think I've ever heard it so close.
Stephen was fatally shot playing basketball when a gang member drove by and mistook Stephen's friend as part of a rival gang.
I understood that this was a pattern that was happening in our community, but I never realized how close to home it was until it hit home.
These mothers have vowed to make sure no one else will get to know what it feels like to bury a child because of violence. Embarking on that kind of mission has been a part of their healing process.
I'm not going to let my son die in vain, and any of the others, because there's families out here that don't have a voice, that can't have a voice, can't speak, too traumatized.
They've tackled a range of issues from gun control to drug addiction. In 2011, they worked with the city to pass a knife ordinance where stores now need a license to sell blades over 2 inches.
Raise your hand if there has been a shooting in an area where you live or travel.
Their programs educate students who are just as concerned about their neighborhoods. To most mothers, justice has never been about getting revenge.
Justice is getting some help for those that need it. Regardless, whatever it will be, you know, so they can stop, you know, doing what they're doing and getting, you know, and understanding who they are, you know, what it is. They probably don't know themselves.
Their children also knew about understanding the root cause of violence. Kim often uses Stephen's journal as her advocacy guidebook.
He writes in his book, it's a shame that someone gets shot and killed every day. These are his words. So I learned that Stephen was talking about a public health epidemic, not just a public safety epidemic, but a public health epidemic.
Debbie's son Aaron knew that education was a key to a better community. He told younger crowds he gave up his violent ways after too many of his friends were murdered.
You know that if you wake up today and take another man's life, the 2 most likely repercussions will be incarceration or revenge from a family member. You know that if you were to wake up today and attend school and the quest for knowledge, the 2 most likely repercussions are a well-paying occupation and success.
Aaron said that in 2008, 3 years before his life would be taken away. With him and the others gone, their mothers have picked up where they left off.